Hello and welcome to the Aquarius podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed. Today's date is Monday, May 13th, 2024. My guest today is Ethan Dickinson. Ethan is the owner of Fish Mania in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Fish Mania has over 2,000 Facebook likes and over 600 Google reviews with a 4.6 star average rating, which is phenomenal. Ethan is also a founding member of the Chattanooga Area Aquatics Society back in 2018. So Ethan, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Randy. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And we've already spent, like 20 minutes in the pre-interview part of the show, getting to know each other and chatting it up. And hopefully we didn't spend all of our good conversation juices in the beginning there. And we still have some good stuff to bring to the people.
That's right.
All right, Ethan. So I've been pretty bad about this recently in terms of like the sponsorship part of the show. But given that Fish Mania is a retail partner program store and you sell aquarium co-op products, one, I'm going to assume that you like selling aquarium co-op products. And two, I'm going to assume that you have a favorite item of ours. Would you like to call out a product for sponsorship for this episode?
Well, let's talk about the Easy Flow. We just moved all of our tanks in the store over to Easy Flows. A few of them we had to mod a little bit, but they were so easy to do that with. They have really increased our filtration in all of the tanks in our store.
Awesome. In terms of modding, are you just busting out the bread knife to kind of get a little bit less height, like in a 10-gallon or something like that?
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So some of the tanks in the store were a little short for the amount of sponge that I wanted. And so, of course, we had to shorten that Easy Flow so that it would still, shoot into the tank.
Yeah, and I don't know if you care to know this, but I can give you kind of some behind the scenes on that. And I don't know if Corey's already talked about this on a live stream, but while we were trying to figure out what max height, right? Because the Easy Flow kit is, we wanted it to be able to hit a range of short to tall, right? Like even if you're running a 120-gallon aquarium, we want it needs to be able to get to the surface level in order to maximize the flow. And so that means extra pieces or enough pieces so that you can have the height out of the Easy Flow. We debated for several days on, are we going to include a half piece so that people don't have to cut it themselves? But then we're kind of figuring out like, all right, how many people are honestly going to need that little half piece? Because we wanted it to be easy, right? But then we just decided like we're trying to balance provide every customer the options that they are going to need, but then also balancing like just, extra material that we're sending out. And so we settled on, well, we'll just give people really good instructions on how to cut it. And that's actually what I've done for my own, like 20 long, which is not as tall of a tank, a 15-gallon, especially when you run substrate. You just bust out the bread knife and then, you cut the tube, you cut one of the tubes down to the length that you need, and it's going to be just fine. So a little behind the scenes, like we really thought about it, we wrestled with it, but ultimately we decided on, we'll just let people customize it if they want to go a little bit shorter. And one question I do have for you is, have you been able to notice the difference in audible levels of like sound level in your store since switching to the Easy Flow?
It's been amazing. So my store, of course, I bought, it was opened in 1978. And so all of the tanks were on under gravel filters. And so the under gravel filters were just crazy as far as sound. You walked into the store and it was this going on, and it was craziness. But with these guys, you walked into the room, and that's the first thing I noticed when we finished putting them in. I walked in and I was like, wow, it is so quiet. I can hear myself think in my store.
You've got some before and after decibel readings for me, right, Ethan?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
That would have been amazing if you did. But yeah, that was one of those things that while we were developing it, it wasn't even in my thought. I think Corey knew that that's what was going to happen. And then to hear just how quiet it is, and then me wishing that we had Easy Flows back when I had my fish room, because there was so much gurgling and it was so loud that my fish room in the garage was underneath one of my son's rooms. And when his sound machine wasn't on at nighttime, when it was all quiet, you could hear it through the floor. You could hear the bubbling from the garage, which, you could argue, well, my floor, maybe I could have thrown some insulation in there, thrown some foam mold in insulation, but that sounds like a lot of work.
You saved money on a time machine. Not a time machine, a sound machine.
Yeah, no, there you go. Yeah, it's kind of, I was actually going to say, when you said that your store used to sound very gurgly, that is I feel like that's an endearing thing. Now, I would say that the fact that it's quieter is definitely a nice quality of life improvement, but there is something nostalgic about a bubbly, loud store that, you're just like, oh man,
Agreed.
I'm in an aquarium store. Now, if you're having to shout at customers over the sounds of that, or yell to your employees because you can't just have like a normal, like down the aisle conversation with them, that becomes a little problematic. All right,
That's
Ethan.
right.
Well,
That's
well,
right.
thank you so much for helping me pay the bills, and folks, go get your Easy Flow. And if you didn't know, every Easy Flow comes with a sweet Nermy sticker, and Nermy's just adorable, and he's the best. So we love Nermy. All right,
He is adorable.
Ethan, what is your origin story? How did you get started in the hobby? What are your earliest memories of fish keeping?
Well, what is the earliest memory of fish keeping? When I was in elementary school, we had a librarian who had a saltwater tank in the hallway where we would wait to go into the classrooms. And I would sit by that saltwater tank. And back then, of course, I had no idea that what I was looking at were really pests, but it had a hang on the side refugium, which is an area where you grow algae to kind of control nutrients and control algae growth in your aquarium. But I would look into this little box, and there would be little worms and copepods, amphipods, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And everybody else looked at the fish, and I was like, "Whoa, these little worms are the coolest things that I've ever seen in my whole life." And I guess that's really where it started, because every morning for pretty much all of my elementary school years, I would sit by that tank and watch that tank. And then my dad is a veterinarian, and he had a freshwater tank in his lobby. And so that's the first thing I remember. And then the second thing I remember is asking my mom for fish every single time we went to Walmart, because
Nice.
she would leave me in the fish section and then go and do whatever she wanted and hope I was still there, I guess.
Dude.
But man, it was the coolest. I remember, and terrible fish keeping, of course, Walmart, but I can't imagine how many good things came out of Walmart having fish, how many hobbyists and how many kids that were left in the fish department to look at them while their moms were shopping. But eventually I got myself a 20-gallon tank, or my mom got me a 20-gallon tank. I think I was 9 or 10 probably. And I loved those fish. And of course, it being that we got them at Walmart and I had no idea what a local fish store was or anything like that, I had the strangest, I guess, community of fish in there. We had upside down catfish, we had Blackmore goldfish and angelfish and cories. And I remember I would always get 2 of each of them. And I had these books where I would write down all the fish's names, what their favorite foods were, and everything like that. Which, of course, in the future led to me kind of observing what they liked and what they didn't like and whatnot. But it just grew from there. I had a 20-gallon tank with a very strange assortment of fish. And one day, little 10-year-old, 11-year-old Ethan found all of his fish dead when he came home from school.
Oh, no.
And that led him down the YouTube rabbit hole of, hey, what did I do wrong? What happened? What is going to happen in the future to make this not happen? And that's where it all started.
You just made me feel so old saying that 10 or 11-year-old Ethan was on YouTube, like watching.
No,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm like, man, how old are you, Ethan?
I'm 24.
How young are you? My goodness, that's
I know.
awesome. All right, so I want to kind of go back. First off, my parents would also let me wander Walmart, which right now I'd be like, there's no way I'd let my boys wander a Walmart. Like that is just,
Yeah, right.
I'm like, what in the world were they thinking? Just letting little Randy roam the toy section and the fish section. Like, what's going on? Because I remember then I would have to like go down the aisles and you would just look down every aisle. Nope, Dad's not there. Nope, Dad's not there. Nope, Dad's not there.
Yeah, that's right.
And miraculously,
That's right.
you would just find your parent. And sometimes he would be in the checkout line. Like,
That's right. He was ready to go. He was just
like,
waiting
what?
for you at the front.
no, he wasn't waiting for me. He was at checkout. Like,
Oh.
I don't know what I don't think I can't remember if like I ever had to go outside to like where we parked the car to like find my parent loading up the vehicle. I don't know if I ever had to take it that far.
Wow.
But I think without fail, every single store we ever went to, I would just get to wander and just look, and it great for them. I'm not bugging them to be like, "Are we done yet?" Like I would just go look at Star Wars toys or whatever it was, or
That's right. It builds character.
oh man, it builds something, dude. I don't know, man, but I would never do that. I'm full helicopter parent mode, man. I'm a friggin' Apache helicopter for those that know aerospace.
Love that.
I'm sorry.
Usually those are the ones that were not helicoptered as children.
I may, yeah. All right, so the elementary school. Let's give a shout out to the elementary school. Do you know, is the tank still up and running at that school?
No, actually, that's actually a good story. So she got older, the librarian did, and she's still the librarian there, but she couldn't take care of it. And they called us to take it down, and so we went and took the tank down.
Oh no! I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Ethan, you should go there and set up a tank.
I would love to go and set up a tank there. I actually take care of their turtle tank that they have right now. And I think that's as much as she wants to do.
Hold on. What school is this that had a saltwater tank and they have a turtle tank? Because I'm feeling real
it's
jealous.
Actually all thanks to the librarian, Miss Owens. She was fantastic.
Shout out to Miss Owens. What is the school, Ethan?
That's right.
Please, can we please shout Miss Owens out?
Absolutely. Collegedale Academy, but she was great. She was so great. And she had scorpions and all the other things.
Collegedale Academy. Okay, awesome. And Mrs. Owens, the librarian there. Did you say, what was it? What kind of turtles? Like red ear sliders?
I think they were red ear sliders.
Okay.
Everybody has a red ear slider at some point in their life, but she also had like leopard geckos and oh man, what are those called? Scorpions. And she was definitely a character.
That is phenomenal, man. That is so cool. All right, so then let's see here. Oh, I completely lost my train of thought because I got so excited about all these other critters that you had in your library. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to either that or I'm just getting old, like we've already established.
You're good.
And all right, so what is the transition of Ethan then and becoming an employee at Fish Mania? Like, what does that journey look like for you?
Oh, sure. Actually, that's a great, because that's right after having the 20-gallon crash. I started to watch a lot of YouTube. I found a lot of different people with different information about what could have gone wrong. Of course, I set up another tank, the same tank, and this time I had a fascination with guppies. I feel like guppies bring a lot of people into the hobby because it's kind of instant gratification because they breed, and that is really what sent me on a downwards or upwards spiral, however you want to see it, into this hobby and into this industry. Because as soon as those things bred, I was like, whoa, I'm keeping these things so good that they decided to have babies for me?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Little did I know you could put them probably in a toilet and they would have kids as they were swimming around the bowl.
Unless they were my black Moscows after me having them for like 4 months. I think I had one hatch of babies or one, what do we call it? How do we reference the action of birthing of babies, a group of babies? A spawn.
A spawn? Yeah.
Do we say
I
spawn?
guess.
Okay. Once I had one spawn of black Moscow babies, they just decided to shut down. It's like, oh, great.
Wow.
And tried all sorts of things. I digress, though. Please continue, Ethan, Mr. Master Guppy Breeder.
No. Definitely not master. But
I'm changing your title. I'm changing your title in this interview to Ethan, Master Guppy Breeder Dickinson. Go for it.
Oh, appreciate it. So I guess I was, this would still be 11, like right there. I was breeding guppies, and that led to me wanting to breed other fish. The Coarse that I had in there, I was like, I'm going to put all of my effort into doing that. I got a 20 long for the Paleotis Coarse that I had in there, and I bred them, and then it was just like addiction. I was like, I need more things. And so at that point, I had found some local fish stores in the area. I had traded them some of the guppies. My poor mother, who drove me everywhere and let me set up all these fish tanks in my room. But she would take me to the fish store. I would trade them the fish that I was breeding for a bunch of different things, including new tanks and new equipment for those tanks. And it got to the point where I got a brute trash can for the guppies and started breeding them in there. There was a giant Java moss ball that was spinning in the bottom, and I had an air stone. And that was my main, as an 11-year-old kid, my main source of income was a big bin full of mutt guppies that were super pretty because I just kept going and trading for cool genetics to throw in there all the time. And so then I would trade them to the stores and they would give me things in return. And I got to the point where I bred rams, I bred crebensis a lot. I did discus one time. The female, unfortunately, stopped eating when she had her babies. And so she was still secreting the discus milk. And just before you could even see it, she got so skinny and died. And that completely put me down to discus. I was like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to raise the babies. I'll sell them. And then I'm not going to do them again because that was sad.
I do want to go back and unpack some of the other stuff that you said, but for the discus, you are still in the Chattanooga area, right, at this time?
Yeah, Chattanooga.
Okay. I'm assuming you guys have pretty hard water there, right?
Extremely, yeah. So I was, at that point, I was using acid buffer and lowering my pH. Wasn't using RODI water. Because I had no idea what RODI water was, but basically just trying to get it to the best with what I had, and they decided to spawn.
Okay, so was there? I guess I'm trying to untangle. Do you think? Obviously, you had success. You got them to spawn and actually have fry. Do you think if you would have kept at it with just normal tap water, obviously like chloramines aside, or treated for, do you think you might have been able to get them to breed, or do you think you needed to get the water down to act? Because that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, is having discus again, living somewhere that has hard water, and just seeing if good husbandry, good nutrition will eventually get the discus to spawn, or is it truly like, no, you have to have that soft water, which is what I inherently had when I lived in the Seattle area.
So I believe differently because I have 3 local breeders now that don't change their water. In fact, I don't buy discus that are from soft water because if people don't know about our area, we have water that comes out of the tap at about 7.6 pH. And so it's pretty hard water. But the great thing is that most of the suppliers in Florida that we buy from, not as much from the California area, but we do a lot of Florida suppliers. They have water that's around 7.4. And so when we get those fish in, it's a pretty easy move for them to go from the 7.4 to the 7.6 versus, if we were higher or way, way lower, if it was acidic, it would be a hard transfer. But I refuse to buy discus from people that breed them in the softer water because it is a harder transfer for my customers. And I want them to be hardier for them because they're going to be using tap water.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like I'm on this train with other people of, just practice good husbandry, practice good water cleanliness, good feeding, and the fish, the shrimp or whatever it is, they will do their thing. Now, I think there's probably some more extreme examples. Like, let's say you get one of like the super exotic bettas that comes from like basically like acid water, right? Like super low pHs, ultra like tannin rich waters. Like, sure, those guys probably do need to be in that kind of water, but maybe for most other fish, the discus included, like we don't have to play with water nearly as much as we think we do. And actually, if anything, maybe the less tinkering is going to be better for them. But obviously, in your experience, you did do some water tinkering and you were able to be successful. So,
I did tinkering because back then I felt like everything was an absolute. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't as many different opinions. It was very much, well, this guy Hans bred them at this, and this is how we need to do it. And so me I'm sure I was 12 or 13 at that point, was like, okay, well, I need to do that. But now I have a very different opinion. I talk in the club quite often about how many generations most of the fish that we have in the hobby are separated from the wild counterparts that were, that are used to that. And if you are getting a wild fish, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get to those parameters because they're used to something different. But in a fish farm in Florida, if they're at 7.0, 7.2, 7.4 pH, they're not really going to change anything. Unless it's one of the higher end breeders that says that they have to be this way,
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's elitism or just what they're used to, but
Yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah. Those fish in Florida are like coming. They're in water that has passed through like limestone rock. And,
That's right.
I mean, it is liquid rock out there. Hence all the sinkholes that they have in Florida, right?
That's
Okay,
right. That's
so
right.
so as a 10 or 11-year-old, I'm very fascinated with the cories. Were you just leaving the eggs in there, like they're spawning, they're leaving them on the glass? Are you pulling them? Are you like?
So I actually, this is actually a good setup. We had three 20 longs on top and three 20 longs on the bottom, and I had read a book that I got at McKay's that had a like I bred Corey's and a drawn picture of what he did, and he had marbles on the bottom, and then a bunch of plant Java moss and whatnot. And I guess the thought was that the Java moss kind of breaks the line of sight. They're laying the eggs. A lot of the species that I was breeding would go back and eat their eggs, but enough of them would survive, and then they would drop down and they would be below the marble level. And if I looked into the marble, or into all the marbles, and I saw babies, I would catch the parents off of the top of the marbles, and I would throw them in another tank that had the marbles and then all the Java moss. And they would start laying eggs. They would do really good. And as soon as I saw babies there again, I would move them back up. And usually by that point, the babies up here were above the marbles, and I was able to catch them and put them in a grow out tank.
Oh, okay. So then a couple questions on that note. How big was your breeding group of cories?
It was 6 usually because I didn't know any better.
Sure.
I wanted a lot more. But the people that I was talking to at the store said, "Oh yeah, 6 and you'll do it." And I think that's a big reason why a few of the different species wouldn't breed, is because I probably didn't have either a male or a female or a good enough ratio. But I got to do Paleatus, of course, the Aeneas. I did some Julii and some Sturbii, and then Habrocius.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody breed, because that's very like Tetra-esque, right? Like if you're going to work with Characins, if you're going to work with egg scatterers, you do the marble trick, right, in your aquarium.
Right.
So very, very like Tetra-y kind of breeding strategy, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk about or anybody share videos or photos of applying that same strategy to Corydoras. Because in my experience, the Corys that I've always kept, they've always bred, pandas and equis, which those didn't breed for me. They bred for the store,
Right.
but they'll go up high. They'll lay them vertically in the seam of the aquarium, right, along the silicone.
That's right.
So interesting that you were able to get them to. They would egg scatter, but they would just fall. Or I
Well,
wonder.
no. So it wasn't
or
the eggs that were scattering.
the
It was
babies would go
it was
down.
No, so the eggs were on the sides
Okay.
all the time, but whenever they hatched, the babies would be
Yes.
the ones that fell. And
Okay.
so I had problems when I was really little with my Paleatus eating babies. And so when I looked it up, it may have been, because it's been so long now, it may have been that it was a tetra breeding something, but I did it with Cories.
Very
the babies
cool.
would fall between the marbles. And then they couldn't get reached by the parents.
So then, from what you remember, the parents would not predate the eggs once they laid them. They would predate.
Well, that's
on
what the
young.
Java moss was for, was to kind of lose it. They
Gotcha.
wouldn't find the eggs again.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Ethan, as a 10 or 11-year-old, man, that's awesome that you were, doing these breeding strategies. You're definitely, you got some fish nerd chops from your young days. That's fantastic.
Thanks. It was mainly like me trying to become more successful at something that I wanted to do. And I didn't have, as a kid, you don't have a lot of resources at your you don't have it. You don't have a lot of information there, and you have to kind of trust what everybody else says, which is part of getting to the store thing. But a lot of misinformation and a lot of having to find things out myself later. And now I'm at the store.
Nice. All right. So before we dive into Fish Mania, Ethan, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, I'm kind of picturing you bringing your fish into these local stores, and I see you as like a little hustler. Like I see you like kind of being a negotiator, like, bro, I've got 5, Hasbrosis Cories or Paleatus Cories. Like, I want a discus. Like I see you trying to trade up all the time. Like, is that how it went down, or?
Well,
Like,
I didn't know what a good deal was. I didn't know. I probably got taken advantage of, I'm sure. But I would bring things in. The first things I brought in were guppies because my mom told me I had too many. I had in the 20-gallon when I first started. I was breeding them and feeding them, and it was just like moving glass, if that makes sense. Like overstocked, 10,000. And my mom was like, "We got to get rid of some of these. You got to take them to the store." And I took him in, and the guy gave me credit. And I was not expecting credit. I was just giving him the fish. And that really was like, oh, now I can get, at that point it was more guppies. But after that, now I was like, whoa, I can make money with this. And like, it wasn't real money, it's store credit, but it's, I'm a millionaire. I'm rich. Fish rich. And I would go in and just give them the fish, and they would set the points because I was little and whatnot. But then they would give me credit, and I would spend it on other fish that I wanted to try. At one point, I got a bunch of tanks from them. All of the 20 longs that I had were from them. Yeah, it was awesome.
Dude, that's fantastic, man. Like I kind of picture the store owners like, oh, here comes little Ethan. All right, let's see what he's got for us.
That's right. I can't wait to get guppies for 25 cents a piece. That's great.
Well, local bred, right? Local bred in the water.
That's right.
So like way hardier than anything they're going to get on an import order, right? So that's really, really cool. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take it away on the, you know what? Water changes. I'm curious to know, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, were you up on the water changes? Like, what was your...
Yeah, they told me that I had to. And little Ethan and adult Ethan, if you have to do something, you have to do something. And so I was on it. I had to do it. And so it got done. Okay.
And you were just doing what? Siphoning into a 5-gallon bucket and just taking it to the bathroom?
Yeah, literally buckets.
Okay.
Buckets out the window.
Out the window. Nice.
Out the window, and then a garden hose to fill it up.
Okay. Very cool. All right, Ethan. So let's go ahead and talk about then your journey of Fish Mania.
Sure. So I actually didn't know that Fish Mania existed. It was the last store that I found on my journey of getting fish credit and getting more fish. But I was 14 when I found Fish Mania. It was the end of my school year, and it was because one of my friends was setting up a tank, and I had found out, and I was like, dude, can I come to the fish store with you? And we went into the store, and it was Fish Mania. I was like, I've never been here before. And I talked to the owner. I talked to some of the employees. I was like, I have fish I can bring you. And I had my mom, wonderful lady, again, thank you. I had my mom bring me over, and I brought some of the fish, and I think it was maybe 5 or 6 times that I came in, and it was then the summer, and he offered me a job. And so I started working at Fish Mania. Again, my mother would drive me every single time, and we worked that summer, and then I didn't work until I had my poverty license, and at 15 I went and started working there during the school year, and was manager at 16, and at 17 started the process of buying the store.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
you said a term, and maybe this is like a Tennessee thing. What kind of license?
Poverty license. So when I was little, my parents were divorced, and because my mom is a teacher, I can take her salary. And if your family makes under a certain amount, a young kid, a 15-year-old, can have, instead of a learner's permit, a license to go from work to home.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or from school to home.
Gotcha. Well, for those not in Tennessee, hopefully you now know something about that practice. Cool. Very cool. Yes. Well, I just want to say, like, we're a day past Mother's Day, man, but we've got some major thanks to your mom for nurturing. You know, we've got like 2 super influential women. Was it Miss Owens, the librarian?
Miss Owens, yeah, Miss the librarian. Owens, she's great.
And Ethan's mom. We've got 2 like just super influential women in your life to get you to where you are in this hobby. So thank you so much to both of them.
That's right. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. No, you go for it.
I was gonna say, 17 years old. You're going to acquire Fish Mania. When you were taking it over,
Hmm.
Was the business doing well? Was it like it was, obviously you didn't know about it. It was one of your last kind of stores that you discovered in your local area. So maybe the marketing wasn't as good as it could have been, or the advertising or the presence in the hobby, I guess. And so you're looking to take this business over. Did it feel risky? I feel like that's a automatic
Yeah,
yes
so I guess
question
let's
or
take it back to when I first started working there. It definitely was not one of the stores that a lot of people thought about in Chattanooga. It's in Eastridge, which is an area that doesn't have a lot of shopping or whatever, and so you don't see it as much. And then, of course, the owner opened in 1978. He doesn't know anything about Facebook or Instagram or marketing or anything. And so it was basically just word of mouth that anybody found them, or you're driving by and you see it on the side of the road. You're like, whoa, there's a fish store. Um, but it was one of the coolest stores I had ever been into. I felt it was the first store that I had ever felt like really welcomed the first time I went in. I think that was the genius and why I loved it so much, is that the old owner was just such a customer service person. He made you feel like he cared about your hobby, and I loved that, and I loved him nurturing that in me as well, making other people feel accepted and like it's something that he's doing with you, you know.
Mhm.
But in any case, we went from it was not one that you saw very much. And so everybody kind of had to find it. I took over their Instagram and Facebook and started showing pictures of the fish, showing pictures of, like, I would share probably too much. I'm sure he got annoyed at me. The cleaner wrasse in saltwater, I loved when they would clean your hands. Like when you put your hands in, they would go up and down your arms and in between your fingers. And I would share those videos all the time of the cleaner wrasses, of clownfish hosting anemones, of every fish that we got in. I was just so excited. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons he made me manager, but also, knowing a little bit more than the average kiddo about the fish
Mhm.
that he was selling. But yeah, going from there, it definitely felt, in 2017, it felt like a risk, but my dad, of course, owns his practice, and I talked to him and went to him for advice a lot about doing this, and honestly, he's probably the biggest driving force of buying a business and biggest support. But he just told me that everything looked good. Like, they've been in business since 1978, when every other fish store that had been in business had closed, and if another fish store opens, it's it. I don't know how to say that, but there aren't very many fish stores left in Chattanooga. And what Carl used to tell me is that when he opened the store, there was a fish store on every corner. Like there was, in every part of town, there was a fish store. And for some reason, Fish Mania just stuck it out, even though there was no marketing, no nothing. There was something about it that had a little bit of magic. And so my dad actually took me to Nashville, Knoxville, and Atlanta, Chattanooga is such a cool place because it's 2 hours from all of those places, also 2 hours from Huntsville, Alabama. It's such a cool, like, middle city to all of those huge cities, not just in the fish hobbies, but in most things. Those are bigger cities in the South. And so we went to all of those places and went to all the fish stores, and I asked all of the owners, what would you do again? What would you do differently? Would you recommend that I do this? Like, am I going to hate myself for this? And I got an overwhelming, I love my job. I would never do anything different. This is like the love of my life. I can't. And I got a lot of really good information. Like, here's what I would do differently. Here's what, and so after that trip, honestly, I was so pumped. I was like, yeah, okay. They love their lives. At that point, I was thinking about being a teacher. It was not, you never think, man, I could buy the fish store, right? You think, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a nurse, whatever. And I wanted to be a teacher. And with this job, I get to teach everybody about the thing that I love more than anything else in the world. every day, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're able to combine your love of fish and your love of educating. That's phenomenal.
That's right. It's very lucky for anybody to be able to do, but I appreciate it for sure. But in any case, he had started talking about retiring, and that's really what got me in, like, asking questions. Like, I was asking him, "Did you like doing this?" And I'm sure that he didn't think that a 17-year-old kid was going to buy a store, but I was like, "Hey, are you, what price, if you are going to sell it? What are you gonna? What's the rate going to be? What's it going to go for? Can I trade you some corridors?"
And some guppies. Don't forget the guppies.
That's right. And guppies. You want my trash can full of guppies, sir? Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, but he started talking about retiring, and I asked him questions. Like, he put his kids through school, and no fish store owner, minus a few, I guess I should say, are going to be rich. But they're rich in happiness. And so that's what he told me. And we just went from there, I guess. Yeah.
That's awesome. To kind of understand the store a little bit better. So when you were working there, and maybe you've changed the dynamics, but what is your, how big is the store? How many tanks? Well, I get, and yeah, I'm being very kind of circular here. When you started there, how many tanks, how big, and what was like the salt versus freshwater kind of breakdown? And then kind of what is it now, and what does that evolution look like?
I would say, man, what's a good ratio there? Saltwater is going to be about 30% of the store. And so you're looking at 70% freshwater. And I would imagine that most stores, at least in my area, but also in Knoxville and Nashville, you kind of see the same ratio. There's a lot more freshwater people, but of course there are a nominal amount of saltwater people. And when you sell saltwater versus freshwater, there's also a higher price tag. And so even though we have more saltwater or more freshwater, and did have more freshwater then, saltwater was still a really big, as far as monetary value, part of the store.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say that we had probably, we had the island and the room, which the room is 20, maybe 27 or 30 tanks. And then the island is 24 tanks. And then we had saltwater room, and that is going to be 14, 15, about 21, 22 tanks. And we had a few, I shouldn't say display tanks, because he didn't believe in display tanks, but we had a 125 where people could turn in their big fish. And then we had a reef tank with all of the corals. And that was pretty much it. We have grown a lot since then.
What so square footage wise, have you taken any more spaces on, or is it still the same footprint as it was when you started?
Yeah, it's the same footprint. We've just crammed a lot more in there and kind of reorganized.
Gotcha.
We have, I think it's 2,500 square feet, and we have the same tanks that we had there before. But instead of our desk being in the middle of the store and taking up a bunch of room, we put in 2 planted tanks and 2 frag tanks. And I kind of modeled our planted tanks after what you would see in the coral industry, a shorter frag setup where you look from the top and from the side. Just because I think that freshwater people deserve to have that same kind of luxury feeling. Because when you go to a coral show or even a coral store, it just has this really cool, I don't know, it's a really cool feeling to pick out a coral, and I wanted people with plants to feel kind of the same way.
Yeah, very cool. And I remember it was it a year ago that you did your remodel, or was it more recent?
Oh, so it's a constant remodel. I will say that every time customers come in the store, they ask me what thing I'm doing new. And that's mainly because every little bit of extra cash that we have goes towards something new. So like we have a 14-foot, 700-gallon tank now. We have a 475-gallon tank for saltwater. Every chance I get, I try to do something to the store, whether it be bins to hold the gravel in, because I don't like the look of them just sitting on the floor. or, new tanks or new floors or anywhere. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just checking out your between your Facebook posts and your Instagram posts. Just checking out pictures, and it's looking really good. I will say,
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of going back to your 70-30 split on freshwater to saltwater. I feel like obviously Aquarium Co-op all freshwater only. Talking to Dustin at the fish room, he's a freshwater only store. But a funny thing about talking to a non-aquarist, like when you try to explain your job to them, which is always a fun experience, right? Oh, I work in the fish industry, right? Oh, like what kind of fish? Like, oh, like tropical fish aquariums. The more often than not, they instantly go to saltwater. So even though saltwater is the minority, and you're kind of, confirming that with even how your store is a 70-30 split, most people think of Finding Nemo, right? Like they go to the Clownfish, they go to Dory, they think of corals or, a lot of dentists, right? Oh, that's actually what I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to ask you about your dad's tank at the dental practice, vet. His vet practice.
Veterinarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I digress. That's for another day. Most people think that it's into saltwater, but actually the majority of people in the hobby, the majority of aquariums are going to be freshwater. So just kind of an interesting little side note.
That's right. And that is, the hobby as a whole is freshwater and saltwater, right? But then you get into the freshwater side and the saltwater side. And even then you get into cichlids versus planted tanks or goldfish versus whatever. There are so many people and so many different things that they like to do in this hobby. And that's one of the magics of the hobby is that if you have never kept a tank before and you're looking to, you find something. And it's super cool for me as a fish store owner to help you find that thing. Like, are you a goldfish person? Are you a cichlid person? Are you a planted tank person? Which is most of the case right now. But yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing.
What would you say, just kind of anecdotally, of your customers, how many are dabbling in both fresh and saltwater? Because to me, while they are the same hobby, it's kind of like an oil and water, kind of like usually you're pretty set into one camp or the other, right? Like, what is your experience?
Yeah, right. I would say that most of my customers, it's really interesting because it's changed over the last few years. Like even my freshwater employees, it's interesting that we have this conversation right now. 2 of my best employees have been setting up a saltwater tank for the first time in the last few months. And it's been amazing because saltwater people, there are a lot of saltwater people that have a freshwater tank somewhere. Their kid has a glowfish tank, or their kid has a little planted tank, or even themselves, they have a freshwater tank. But there's less freshwater people that also have saltwater. And I guess when I say freshwater person, that's kind of what you're into and what you have the most of is freshwater. Not to say that they are, if you have saltwater or freshwater, you can't be both. I would say the last 2 years in particular have been a lot of freshwater people have been setting up their first small saltwater tank.
I feel like I can appreciate the coral tanks and coral setups. I'm a little wary of, giving coral price tags and whatnot, and just kind of hearing one of my friends' experiences about the velvet dips and all the extra like catastrophic things that could potentially happen with the coral tank. But there's something about a fowler, right? I think that's the acronym for fish only with
fish
live
only
rock.
With live rock.
Yeah, so like your standard clownfish tank, maybe I don't know, like a 30-gallon cube kind of setup, because there are some really cool clownfish morphs, and the way they swim and interact, like it is pretty adorable. So I could see me setting up one of those in the future, but I don't know. I'm kind of like a stodgy freshwater person too. Like I'm not so dug in that I wouldn't set up one of those tanks. But
I will say it's adorable, and I think the genius is that they have a completely different personality and different character than any freshwater fish that you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And people in saltwater say the same thing when they set up freshwater tanks. It's like, whoa, I can have 20 of the same fish in this tank. That's stunning. It's amazing. Schooling behavior and catfish and everything. And I think that's really... In the end, it's a collector's hobby, right? When I listened to your interview with Corey, I guess 2 episodes or maybe 3 episodes ago, when he was saying it's really a collector's hobby. It's something where people want to keep this, want to keep that, but then it comes with the maintenance. I think you guys were mainly talking about maintenance in that respect, but even from my side, it's like it's a collector's hobby, and we collect personalities almost. Like you've never kept a freshwater goby. It's the cutest thing in the whole world.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. Let's see. Let's see if you can push me a little closer to this Fowler tank. What is your favorite clownfish variant, morph, whatever you salties call that?
Oh man, dude, it's so when I was first got my first saltwater tank, I think it was 2016. The black storm clowns were coming out for the first time, and they had come out a few years before, but they were the thing that was like the most popular, the thing that I couldn't have or whatever. And they look like little cows. I love them. They're so amazing. Dalmatians or cows. They're so cute, adorable.
All right, that's the one. I just hit entered on the old Google image search. That's pretty cute.
It's pretty adorable. They do look like little cows.
They do. That is awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty adorable. I might have to spend like an hour just wasting time looking at all the different clownfish variants, but
that's right.
That's pretty cool. Are they now fairly common, fairly available?
Yeah, those ones are. They're still one of the more expensive varieties, so they go for like $80 to $90 a piece. But that is still not anything compared to some of the other clowns. So like there's one, I think it's called a peacekeeper clownfish, and that's one of the newest varieties.
A peacekeeper? Does it come loaded with some firearms or what?
That's exactly right. Yes.
Peacekeeper clownfish. What? Oh man. So the I feel like that saltwater naming strikes again.
Yeah, that's right.
Just what's going on? Okay, peacekeeper clownfish. Here we go. All right, it's got the kind of like very distinct white. It's almost like a map. Like it's got like
white and red.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cool mainly because there's not a lot of variations of the maroon clownfish. So maroon clownfish. So like when we talk about what did I literally just talk about? Black storm clowns. Black storm clowns are a variant of the Ocellaris clownfish. And there's about 1 million different variations of Ocellaris. It's like guppies. You have 1 million different variations, different ways that people have bred them, the ways that they look. Ocellaris clownfish are the same way. People are just stepping into the variants that they can make with maroon clowns. And so that's why they're more popular, not more popular, I should say, but definitely more rare because you don't see them as much.
Dude, what is this blue lightning blue clownfish? What is this guy?
Oh, that's fake actually.
Oh, is it fake? Why is it on my what's going on, Google Images?
I know there's a blue maroon clownfish that has circled the web for years. I probably get a question about it every maybe 2 weeks. People are like, "Can you get this blue clownfish?" I'm like, "It's photoshopped."
That's awesome. I was going to say, because it got me, man. I'm like, what is this light blue, awesome looking thing? This looks too
beautiful,
cool.
Right?
That's amazing. I love that you get a question about it every 2 weeks. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Same thing happened on TikTok recently for April Fools. They did the freshwater clownfish thing. I don't know if you saw that, but
no, I didn't see that.
Somebody posted, I think they were in a breeder box probably, but they were in a planted aquarium, 2 clownfish, and they were like, deep in the rivers of the Amazon, we found the first freshwater clownfish, and I got about 1 million calls. Oh my goodness.
Happy April Fool's Day to you, Ethan. Oh my goodness.
That's right. I was like, dang it.
That is too funny, man. Oh my goodness. So it sounds like if the Aquarius podcast was a saltwater podcast, I would spend like 100 episodes just talking about clownfish morphs. Is that about right?
You would spend a long time for sure, but I know that you're a freshwater podcast, so yeah. I don't want to take up time
No. I think this is super fascinating. That's crazy that you could just go that far down the. I guess what is that akin to in freshwater? What's got? I mean, I guess African cichlids
honestly,
and all.
Guppies.
Guppies. Yeah.
Like blue Moscow. You've got red dragon. You've got you say it's like
Dumbo ears. I mean, it's the sky's kind of the limit. So I guess Is that can we plant our flag on that? That the clownfish is the guppy of saltwater? Is that fair?
I don't want to get accosted by the saltwater people, but I would say that.
From like a pure variant perspective, like the
Oh,
number of
absolutely. As
variants.
far as breeding is concerned, you're breeding them. You talk about guppy breeding. You're breeding them for their finnage. You're breeding them for their color. You're breeding them for their body shape, and it's the same with clowns. Clowns, you're breeding them for long fins. You're breeding them for the different color variations you can get. Hypermelanism, hyperleucism. Yeah, and it's the same in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just impressed though that you, as an owner of a fish store that services both the fresh and saltwater community, like you have to be knowledgeable in both. Like I just get to be ignorant and only know about freshwater stuff. Like, I can definitely appreciate, how much knowledge is now crammed into your brain because you have to be able to troubleshoot saltwater stuff too.
That's right. I appreciate that. I think growing up, because it's pretty much the only, besides helping my dad at his clinic, the only job I've ever had was working at a fish store. And so starting at a fish store at 14, you are a sponge. Instead of listening to my teachers at school, I was listening to my customers and my boss
Hold on.
about fish.
Was that no saltwater pun intended?
Oh man.
Yeah. Come on, Ethan. Come on. Busting out the dad jokes on me. I like it.
That's right.
Let's see here. So your previous owner, one of the other questions I had was, I think I know the answer, but he was not a fan of display tanks. Was it purely because it's not a like direct contributor to sales?
Yes, and it's where we really butted heads on that and on plants because he didn't carry plants either. And so it was me that brought plants into the store. It was me that set up our first little planted tank on the counter as a display to show people what they could do. Of course, my opinions differ on display tanks. I have a display tank almost everywhere you look in the store, and that's just because you got to show people what they could do and what you're doing to make them excited and also for you to keep your hobby alive, Mm-hmm. But it's definitely an older way of thinking that display tanks, if you have a tank set up in the store, it's just taking up foot space, where you could be selling something or you could be, he had bird food in the store. He didn't have any birds. He had bird food though, because, just in case somebody that also has birds comes in and wants bird food.
Nice. Yeah, I can remember, I think I've shared this before, but my very early days going to the Sacramento in California, the Sacramento Aquarium Society, and the one event that I went to, or the one club meeting I went to, the speaker was talking about live aquarium plants in an aquarium. And at the time, I'm an Oscar keeper, right? I've got 120 gallon Oscar tank. I'm playing with some flower horns. I've got a Frontosa tank. No live plants to be seen. And the idea of like, what? People keep live plants in an aquarium? That's lame. Like, I'll never do that. Fake plants all day long if I want any plants in my tank. And now, I could not imagine me having, even in like a breeding setup, a potted aquarium plant in an easy planter on a bare bottom tank or a clump of Java moss, or some floaters. Like, I could not imagine a tank completely sterile without plants in it.
Agreed completely. It's a crazy thought that one day in the hobby there was only, fake plants and SpongeBob ornaments as available decor.
One of my tanks has a SpongeBob decoration in it. Well, I say my tanks. No. It's my older son's tank. He's got the SpongeBob decoration. But
fantastic.
Because they do, like, every time we go to the store, they're like, "Can we get a new decoration?" I'm like, guys, you have no like square inch space to put more decorations. Like, I think we're between like, the hardscape, the plants, and the existing decorations. I don't think we have any more real estate. So now what they've done is they've been taking like these little silly plastic, I don't even know where they got them from, but they're like these plastic fish. They're monocolored, like just green, a 2-inch cheap little toy plastic fish, and they're dropping those in the aquarium. They've dropped a couple of like dinosaurs in there, and I'm like,
I love that.
It doesn't have any paint on it. Fine. You'll like this. We were at Dollywood, months ago, and
Dollywood.
Dollywood, good old Pigeon Forge, which, for somebody from the West Coast that has no idea about Dollywood or Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg, like, how in the world there's like a mini Vegas without gambling set up in the Smoky Mountains. I have no idea, but it's like
Yeah,
it's
amazing and
there.
clean and
It's it's there. It's a thing, and it blew my mind. But I digress. So we were doing the mineral, like we were doing the mineral thing, and one of them they got a big old chunk of quartz, and so that's been shared between the aquariums, which I haven't had any losses. So apparently quartz is okay for your fish tank, but that's bounced from
Well, there
one
you go.
tank. Yeah, that's bounced from one tank to another tank. But yeah, there's just all sorts of random debris. Yeah, I don't know how we got on that topic. Oh. Yeah, at one time there was only SpongeBob decorations in fake plants. So
That's right. So like right now, I don't order any new decorations because I have donation boxes where adults that started that way can donate their stuff to kids, because kids don't care if it's dirty or broken a little bit, like chipped or anything. They just want something cheap, and their parents don't want to pay for it. So
mhm.
adults bring their stuff in and donate it, and then kids can take it for free,
Dude,
as long as they're under 15.
I had the circular kind of broke down Greek like Roman Colosseum thing that was a
Coliseum,
bubbler.
yes, sir.
Dude, that thing was awesome. I mean, it's pretty silly and it was pretty expensive from like PetSmart or Petco or wherever I bought it from. But at the time, like with the who had that? I think that was in the Oscar tank. That thing was
Love that.
premium.
The Oscar
Yeah.
Coliseum. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, and that was also when I like occasionally would feed like a feeder fish, like yeah, those are days that Randy won't repeat again. But you got to start somewhere. You got to learn.
That's right. Exactly.
Speaking of learning, do you want to tell me? Do you want to tell me some plans? Like, what do you have planned for Fish Mania, or do you want to? I would love to dive into you helping start Chattanooga Area Aquatic Society. What do you think, Ethan?
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. We can do that. So that goes back to when my dad took me to all the stores in Knoxville and Nashville and Atlanta, to ask all the questions about running a store. I was like, why are there so many stores over here? Why is there just more? It felt like there was more people in the stores. There were more stores. And I looked at every store and I was like, there's a club. There's something that, especially in Atlanta, the Atlanta club, at most of the stores, you get a discount in the store. You get, there are events that are posted at the stores. It's super amazing, and it's a community. And so I went back to Chattanooga and I was like, we need a club. We need something that's going to bring people together. And me and one other customer, because I was talking to like every customer that I had about this, every hobbyist customer that is, and one customer was just like, yeah, we do need a club. And me and him, literally, I started a Facebook group and posted, we're going to meet at this coffee shop at this time at this month. And we're going to talk about, I think it was filtration was the first one, like biological, chemical, mechanical filtration. And you're welcome to come if you want to. And so we went and we met, and it was just me and him. And
Nice.
the next month we talked about algae, and we had a lady that kept goldfish in her swimming pool, and it just grew from there. It was just us for about a year, us three. And then after that, we got more and more people, and we were able to do a swap. And now we probably have 20 to 30 people that come to the meetings. And the last swap that we had, and I think this is mainly, like I said before, because we're right in between Atlanta and Knoxville and Nashville, but we had like 800 people come through the door for the swap, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
800 people. That's insane.
It was insane. We had 36 vendors, and they were all blown away. They were like,
Wow.
we've never been to a swap like this. It was so cool.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. What else is planned for the Chattanooga Area Aquarium Aquatic Society?
So we have our swap in August, and so that's the biggest thing. This month we have somebody coming to talk about summer tubbing. Next month we're going to go to a pond store and talk about that side of the hobby, which is ponds and koi and everything. And then after that, there's a guy who works for the University of Auburn that's going to come and talk about parasitology. So he's a ichthyologist with a focus on parasitology.
Oh, sweet.
And so I'm excited about that one, of course.
That's awesome, man. Like, I might have to try to like twist your arm to be like, hey, Ethan, who is this person? Can I have him on the Aquarius podcast or invite him? I'm also,
Dude, yeah,
I'm
that'd be
also,
awesome. That'd be
I'm
so
also,
cool.
yeah, I'm also fascinated about the lady with the goldfish in the swimming pool. Like, that sounds pretty, like, can I talk to her too?
Yeah, she's fantastic. Her pond her swimming pool turned green one year and she just didn't clean it anymore. And so she was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw some comet goldfish in here, and now she has a ton.
That's funny. All right, Ethan. Well, we are running up on the 1 hour mark, my friend. I've taken up a lot of your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Anything you want to kind of leave us with?
Just how much I appreciate you and how much I appreciate everything that you give to the hobby. I guess I feel like you always talk to the guests about everything that they've got going on, but you really have made an impact on the hobby and are making an impact on the hobby, and I appreciate it, and I know other people do too.
Oh man, that's awesome, Ethan. I don't know how to accept that. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you, man. And I will leave links to your Facebook page and your Instagram so people can follow and check out what you're doing. I think Chattanooga is super lucky to have you as a store owner. Your store looks awesome. I would love for there to be some type of I'm sure there would be some type of collaboration, meet and greet event at your store with Aquarium Co-op at some point in the next couple years. Hopefully I'm able to go out there a little bit sooner than that and just hang out with you. But Ethan, dude, thank you so much for taking your time. I've really appreciated the conversation.
Bring it on. Absolutely.